We started farming regeneratively properly 3 years ago. We toyed around with it where I was before, but we're really into it now, doing it properly here. Mob grazing, outwintering and bale grazing is the basis of what we do. But we daily shift the cattle, we move the sheep every third day. We try and have a whole eco look on what we do. So we're thinking of everything, not just the livestock we've got here. We're thinking of soil health. When we plant our crops and things, our rotations are all built around the ecosystem. We didn't want to farm to payments, and I didn't want to farm in a way I've got to do something. I chose the regen path because I feel like it's the right thing to do. And I feel like it's the more all-encompassing practice. Organic, sometimes it is a great thing to do, and it's a great way to almost get a ticket for what you're doing. Regen doesn't have a stamp saying, here you are, you're a regen farmer. Whereas organic, if you're organic, you are at a certain level. So we do miss that with the regen farming. But I didn't want to be told what we could and couldn't do. I feel like if I had to spray, or if I wanted to use fert, I've got the ability to do that. We don't do it, but that's a choice. We're not told what we can and can't do. The most successful practices here at Killintringan have probably been the mob grazing. We've seen a real big improvement in the pasture quality. The water infiltration has been great. We've gone from quite patted top 2 inches of soil to being able to carry cattle late into the winter and high stocking numbers of sheep right through the season without seeing a lot of poaching. And the cover crops we put in this year have been a great success. On a whole system focus, not just lamb growth. We've seen big influx of pollinators, bird, wildlife, everything has benefited from the cover crop, not just the lambs. The cover crop's a 7 species cover crop with turnips and kale and the obvious for sheep grazing through the winter or late summer. We've got fodder radish to penetrate deep roots, break up soil compaction. We've got mustard for early flowering, vetches for nitrogen, and crimson clover for the same. It's difficult to keep the sheep moving like we require on that 1 to 3 day shift pattern because the infrastructure's not there. Not really because where we are, but just because the fences probably aren't quite right. The sheep have got a little bit naughty, so they jump and kind of make a mess of my rotation a little bit. Other than that, touch wood, we've got on okay so far. Predator pressure's been a little bit of an issue, I suppose, but that isn't so much with the regen, that's just in general. Birds putting a lot of pressure on, if I get a sheep on its back, for example, a lot of bird pressure on eyes and fox pressure on the poultry. When we venture into the agroforestry, it's something we're going to be really aware of. We are going to have to de-fence areas. If we put these chestnut plantations in for fencing like we plan to, we will definitely have to de-fence. We've got a little bit of a red deer pressure on one of the cover crops now, but nothing that's too scary. The benefits we've seen on animal health, I suppose, is lack of wormers. We generally don't worm often. The lambs have had a nematodirus, which we can't really get away from, and 1 wormer since weaning, and that's them done. Cattle have very little wormer or very little interaction, full stop. Not even any minerals. So generally health is good. I think that's moving daily, keeps the worm burden down. Higher growth of grass means we aren't grazing right where all the worm pressure would be. And generally, I think a healthy ecosystem, they kind of balance themselves out. The stock we run here is a native Aberdeen Angus herd, transitioning to more native. There's a bit of a mix. We've got some bigger dairy cross Angus cows that are going to be brought out, and more native genetics brought in through the bulls. But very aware we don't want to drop the size too much for the market that we're working with. Locally, the markets are used to the Charolais, the Limousins. So if I take a little tiny natives into air market, I might get a bit of a hammering. And the sheep we work with are the Cheviot Hill ewes and an improved Welsh ewe crossed with an Aberfield ram. Creates the Aberfield cross ewe that we're looking to have as the flock going forward. So quite prolific, good mothers, quite hardy and should do on this system with a benefit of rough coastal grazing for the winter, better forage in the spring, summer for the lambs. So the system is everything is outside as much as humanly possible. The only stock that come in are our young stock off our cattle. in their second cycle. So they do a winter with their mother generally, and then they're weaned obviously, and then come the next winter they come in just to try and keep growth rates, take a little bit of pressure off the pasture at the minute while we're still transitioning. The quality of the ground isn't quite there, the forage isn't quite good enough to finish animals. Ewes, normally they're all out, lambs are all finished outside. It's a completely outdoor system bar my little thorn in my side of the cattle young stock. I want to keep them growing. The only additional feeding we buy in at the minute is for the pigs. We've got a little handful of pigs that go through the woodland, sporadically dotted around the estate and farm. There's little pockets of woodlands where the pigs go. I'll supplementary feed those with like a sow nut roll. The sows that obviously are farrowing, they get a bit more. And the boars, if just when we're about to finish them, I'll pump them up a little bit just to get a bit of flesh, to get a good fat cover. The outlet is generally live markets. We do some direct supply through the big house, through weddings at Dunsky House. We do some meat boxes. The pork is sold. We sausage a lot of the pork and sell that direct. And the odd lamb will go here and there to family and friends. But generally it's the live market at the minute. I think the direct supply thing is the cherry on the top in a few years down the line. At the minute, I've got to get the general function of the farm working through the live ring, and then the rest of it should follow suit. The goal for me is a completely sustainable system in the next 3 to 5 years. Hopefully in 3 years' time we'll be completely self-sufficient. Our cattle will replace themselves, the sheep will replace themselves, my herbal lays will replace my old historic pasture. And hopefully we're going to be a farm that people want to come and visit. People who are just getting into the regen movement want to come and see a farm that's having a go or had a go, and we're a couple of years in front. Hopefully that's the farm we'll be.